Welcome, Gothamites, to WonderCon 2021 and the Arkham Sessions panel on the psychology of Batman. I am Brian Ward, the co-host of the Arkham Sessions, a podcast that psychoanalyzes every episode of Batman the Animated Series through the lens of a clinical psychologist. With me is that psychologist. She is a consultant for writers of film, television, video games, comic books, you name it. She's been written into DC canon as Barbara Gordon's therapist. And you can see her on countless pop culture documentaries, particularly from Warner Brothers and DC on their bonus features. She is Dr. Drea Letamendi. She's a producer and a writer of the Bat and many incarnations from both zany and serious, from Batman Brave and the Bold, Lego Superheroes Batman Beleaguered, and he adapted Batman Gotham by Gaslight. He is Mr. Jim Krieg. And we have a dear, longtime friend of mine. He has written for Young Justice, for also the Lego DC universe. He is the story editor of DC's Superhero Girls franchise. And he has just written the recent Batman Soul of the Dragon out now. Please welcome Mr. Jeremy Adams. Of course, we're all human. We know that it's scientifically proven that from the womb, we come out having known and loved Batman already. But I wanted to know about your genuine first experience with Batman and the gateway that led you into this character. Jim, I'd like to start with you.
Well, as you can see from how I've decorated my rec room, the reruns of Batman 66 were my gateway drug. And I'm sure a lot of people have talked about this in the past, but I watched it so young that I only thought it was an adventure. I only thought it was real. I thought the jeopardy of being frozen to death in a snow cone or barbecued on a giant rotisserie, I thought all those were legitimate dangers that I would have to avoid. And then you get a little bit older and then they start to seem stupid. And then you get just a little bit older than that and you go, oh my gosh, it's a brilliant comedy. And then you feel like such a schmuck for teasing him about wearing bat thermal underwear, against Mr. Freeze, because obviously now you understood that it was a joke. But I remember going to kindergarten at Halloween, and my family all pitched in to make me a Batman costume. And my dad made the cowl out of a Clorox box, a jug of Clorox that they put black felt over, and then the ears, and then just a sweatshirt with the oval also out of felt, and little. I don't know where they found it, but my sister and mom made like shiny blue metallic panties, and the cape. And I went to kindergarten, and there was another kid also in a homemade Batman costume, and he did not have the yellow oval. He had a gray oval and black pants and a black cape. And it wasn't until years later I realized that, because we got an argument, like of course you do, over the look of Batman. And I realized he had a black and white TV, and that's how he had a black and white TV.
That's amazing. I have to say, right after Keaton's Batman, I also made my own out of like a towel, and I made a cowl, but I didn't have access to a bat, so I took a newspaper and clipped out the big oval that was in the front page and taped it to my chest. That was my oval.
That is smart, because that would be the exact right shape. There was no error there.
Yeah. Jeremy, how about you?
Oh my gosh, from Underoos on. The most concrete example is obviously my dad had drawn some DC comics back in the day, a few of them. And so I was always kind of around it. Not just with the reruns of Batman 66, but I remember specifically getting a shot, like as a little kid, and getting a sucker from the doctor, Dr. Boyko, his name was. And my dad stopped by 7-Eleven, and I got this Detective Comics. I think it was I've got it over there, but it's like, Killer Croc was an assassin in it. He wasn't like mindless. He was like trench coat, gun. Jason Todd had different color hair, and it was like a second appearance of Jason Todd. And I was scared to death reading that book. I mean, it was terrifying because Batman almost drowned. But that was like the first time I remember, like knowing it was something else. I mean, I probably played Spider-Man and all this stuff, but Batman was. It was like, oh, there's real danger here, and then I've obviously been way too much of a nut of Batman. Like in Batman '89, I was the first kid in line at my hometown theater with like every button known to man. I had stuffed the ballot box so I could get a stand-up of Michael Keaton.
Oh, that's right. I know this story.
Yeah.
What happened to that standee?
Oh my gosh. Oh, well, no. So I had one that was good, and then my dad gave my brother one, and we'd throw boot knives at it, and we just kept throwing these knives at Batman's crotch. And we ended up, and my mom came in and was like,
so by the way, we're talking, there's a therapist right here. And you're talking about how you and your brother threw boot knives, whatever that is, specifically at his crotch.
Well, what was funny, when my mom came in and said, "Is there anything behind the wall?" We're like, I mean, obviously. And the minute she left, we like pull it back, and we've cut this giant thing out of the drywall. But obviously, Batman has been, I won't say it's my North Star, but it's pretty close.
Drea, by that I mean psychoanalyze Jeremy right now. He's training to be a rogues gallery member.
They didn't throw the knives at the bat or his face. I
know. That just tells you that, the whole idea that this is supposed to draw fire did not work on someone like me.
Yeah, I have to say that all of this sounds completely normative, to be quite honest. So for me, I discovered Batman the Animated Series right around the time it started to air. And I hadn't really I had gotten some comics. I was into Archie comics and had started to delve a little bit, but that show it felt so different to me than what I'd seen before. I'd seen cartoons before. And I just remember feeling like, oh, this is different. This is pulling me in. I'm fixated. Like I became absolutely obsessed with it. And it certainly, it was my first time getting exposed to, Batman as this phenomenal detective and as this character who is flawed, right? Who is not a superhero in sort of the traditional narrative style of a superhero, but also the surrounding characters, especially the villains, they had these histories and backgrounds and traumatic experiences that helped me understand like, whoa, this is really complicated. It isn't just about the fighting. Like this is emotional. This is sort of these stories are really deep. And that led me, I watched just about every episode, and that led me to then like start looking into the comics. And I have to say, like, I didn't have any friends I had friends, but I didn't have friends that were into this. I sort of felt like this was a unique relationship that I had with this storytelling and certainly through the animated series, it being so reliably good. Right. And I'd say those were the moments that brought me in to Batman's bigger universe, right? The comics, that later the films, and like never looked back. And to this day, continue to look at the animated series as a really important fixture, right? That these became really formative for the storytelling that would take place much later.
Drea, you have a hypothesis that has become relatively popular with our listeners, which is that involves Bruce Wayne and his alter ego, or should I say alter egos. Tell us about Bruce Wayne versus Batman versus Bruce.
Well, I think some people have posited or questioned, Bruce as a person, that his personality is ruptured, or even some people have said he must have multiple personality disorder, or some kind of like, some kind of really a serious and rare disorder or condition related to his personas. And I think it's actually much more simple and probably much more relatable, which is that he's found this, as Batman, of course, he's found this outlet to engage in activity, to engage in this release of adrenaline and release of a traumatic stress, honestly. And that his sort of like public persona is this, very superficial outward personification or representation of who he is. And then there's Bruce. And so I think most people think of like, oh, Batman versus Bruce Wayne, like where like those are the sort of the divided selves. And I think more of it as this trio, that Bruce is the emotional intelligence. Like Bruce is probably more integrated than his outward persona that he puts to the public to come across as seemingly detached and superficial and sort of like concerned with wealth and not much else. I mean, some philanthropy, but certainly you wouldn't necessarily think him as emotionally available. Whereas his most integrated self, so few people know who Bruce is. And that is the character. I think that's the persona who is the most fascinating. He's the persona, or he's the version who's looking for healing. He's looking to make sense of all of this. He's prone to act out as Batman, a part of his persona who is not necessarily healthy, who is putting himself at risk night after night, really being depleted, draining his resources, and exhibiting this very addictive behavior. So altogether, I'd say yes, there is somebody who is incredibly fragile in terms of their full personhood. But if you look at sort of these different aspects of his identity, it makes sense that there are these almost a compartmentalization of who he is, and it functions for the most part in this coordinated way.
Jeremy, Jim, what do you think? Who people have argued that the mask is the true identity, and then the person under the mask is the true identity. Jeremy, you've even got a line in Soul of the Dragon about the fact that the mask separates his two lives. Which one do you think is the true identity, or is it just a combination of both, or even all three?
I think it's funny because like for instance, in Soul of the Dragon, like Jim, me, and Bruce sat there and talked about it. And I think Bruce has a definitive way of looking at it. I don't think I look at it necessarily as one or the other in a lot of ways. I do wonder though, I mean, if I'm like just imagining the Bruce Wayne of it and this kid that is hit by the stark reality of reality, and then he decides I'm going to, become better and fight this thing, this kind of weird philosophical question that he has, like, can I defeat evil? And that's kind of what we played with in Soul of the Dragon. I wonder if there was a moment, and you see it in I think like year one and different Batman books, it's like that moment where he's Bruce Wayne. He's on this trek, he's training himself, and then there's that moment where he's taken on the persona, and then there's probably a period where it's like, I'm still just Bruce Wayne, I just dress up. And then there's a moment where the persona takes over, where now he's spending more time there, and there's more superheroes that are referring to him as Batman than they are referring to him as Bruce. And I wonder if there's a slide into that. But it depends, right? I mean, it depends on who's writing it. But I like the idea. The thing about the idea that the real person is Batman is always a little sad to me. If I'm being honest, it's like, I get it. I understand it. And I know that's been written that way, but it's also kind of sad to me.
Oh, it's totally sad. It's a tragedy. I think what Drea said about there being the third being just Bruce is quite wise. I think that, the Bruce Wayne public persona is very much like, Tyrone Power Zorro, where he's pretending to be this thing to be a fool, essentially, so that you're never going to suspect that he's Batman. But he's playing that role all the time. And sometimes you play it straighter and he's a philanthropist and does good things. But a lot of time it's drunk in the fountain with supermodels. And then I think about the BTAS episode where he dreams where his parents are alive and it's all a setup, and he knows it can't be. I might be confusing too, but it's like he knew it wasn't him because he never calls himself Bruce. He calls himself Batman because he thinks of himself as Batman. But I think that's wrong. I mean, and he may think of himself as Batman, but I think he's wrong. I think there's like Batman is a solid persona and Bruce Wayne Playboy is a persona, but actual Bruce is the one who's most damaged. And he's the one that Dick Grayson can't deal with. So he storms out, and he's the one that keeps at, who he wants to connect with people. And yet he kind of doesn't want to connect with people. And why Alfred is the perfect father figure for him, because he kind of demands nothing. There's a relationship there that's kind of a non-relationship that, he just goes along with everything that Bruce wants to do. But yeah, I'd say Bruce is the most complicated of the trio.
I think too that as you're talking about how he feels about himself, I totally agree that he may feel more comfortable in the mask. There's something about that manifestation that allows him to sort of be what he thinks his authentic self is, who he thinks he needs to be. There's this like mission driven aspect to that. And yes, that is very tragic. Because it's so one-dimensional, and it's really about all these efforts actually to hurt himself. There's a lot of self-destruction involved with being Batman. But to Jeremy's point, if you talk to people who wear masks, and I mean figuratively but literally, I've done a study with cosplayers.
I thought you were going to say luchadors.
Them too.
I've interviewed cosplayers and talked to them about like what it's like to be sort of behind the mask. And what's interesting is that, years ago, like decades ago, psychologists did find that wearing masks is related to some like negative traits, right? Like people are a little bit more aggressive. They're less inhibited. They may act in ways that, of course, they wouldn't act if this is de-individuation. Basically, they're sort of like, you don't know, it's anonymous. It's that anonymity gives them a little bit more flexibility in what they can do. Cosplayers, though, tell me that they feel more like themselves when they're in the costume. They feel like their traits are actually exaggerated. They feel a little bit more authentic. And I wonder, to your point, Jeremy, this sort of like sliding into, like over the years, has he slid way into the Batman persona that he sort of feels like that's who he is to the core?
You mentioned, Jim, the idea of this supporting cast around him. Alfred, Gordon, Dick Grayson, and the gang. Are they helping Bruce to the best of their abilities, or are they enabling him?
That's a great question. I think that in some ways they are not helping. It's basically. I mean, you could make the argument that that Batman is Brittany. And he's surrounded by people who need him to be the thing that is maybe not the best for him, but Gotham needs him, so he's got to do this thing, and we need him because we're his audience.
But you also have like, I wonder, maybe it starts out with just like, I mean, obviously we're talking about hypotheticals, but it's like that kind of thing of like, I'm just going to indulge him. He lost his family. I love him. I'm going to let him go his own way. I'm going to help him. He'll grow out of this,
Yeah.
And then it's like, he's out beating people up. But the knowledge probably of anybody outside of, I mean, Alfred especially knows more than anybody else, is that idea that, he's looking at this beautiful mind type persona that's like, oh man, he's come back with this black eye, but he literally saved a bunch of people. and then obviously as comics go on, you're like, after a while you're saving the world so many times, it's like, yeah, okay, I'll help you with your cape, because you're doing what you need to do. But is it right, is it wrong? I think that's what's great about vigilantism, and that kind of idea of, you're sitting there saying this place is corrupt. I mean, the starkness of the morality of those old serials, whether it's the Shadow or the Avenger or whatever, is, listen, the cops are bad, everything's bad, and only this guy can take it down. Only this guy can do what he needs to do. And what's funny about it in this day and age, when I think about Batman, because when I was a kid and I thought about Batman, the thing that stuck out to me, the thing that kind of like bolstered even my like religious upbringing, was the fact that this guy tried really hard. He trained. He wanted to be this better than human thing, and it felt attainable. It felt like Rocky. Like, oh, you can do it. If you just try, you can do it. And of course, as I get older, I'm like, yeah, he's a billionaire. Of course he can do it. He could have trainers or whatever. I never thought about the privilege piece. I just thought about, oh my gosh, this guy is just, he's single-minded, and I always thought about that. Like, man, if I was single-minded, I could get an A on this chemistry test. Like Batman. But of course,
that's not true.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, I think the other piece of it is the thing. I mean, it's deciding to go on the around the world trip, where you learn from the martial artist and the escape artist and all of and perfect all of those traits, which of course you did, looked into in the Soul of the Dragon. I would argue that in Soul of the Dragon, he's more Bruce Wayne than he is in the other animated versions of even we do at Warner Brothers. It's certainly, it's clear that his double life is an impediment to him having a relationship with Silver, and so it ruins it. But you can still see that there's he has a real life, and he's it's not all about Batman and this is a put on. He has a real life that's being damaged by him putting on the costume.
Well, that was interesting because for Jim, me, and Bruce, like, we sat in the room and just talked hours and hours and hours and hours.
And we should clarify that you're talking about someone that is not Bruce Wayne.
Bruce Timm.
You're not talking to the character.
Well, he wasn't there, and in a way, he was there with us.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is, like, especially with that.
Actually, think about it, Jeremy. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it occurs to me that what Drea said is right. And the three of us together are Bruce, where Bruce Timm is Batman.
Yeah.
You are the actual person, and I'm the handsome millionaire playboy.
You're the handsome playboy. Yeah, that's true. That is absolutely true. How weird. But, we talked about, I remember, we getting that note from DC, which is like, hey, we need more of him in the costume. And we're all kind of like, do we?
Yeah, we got that note from Twitter.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. We get that up from Twitter. Because I do think, again, it's that weird gray area. So much of like Frank Miller's work seeps into everything. But Batman Year One or whatever, it's like you're sitting there going, this is where he's teetering. Like you said, it's like, I have this relationship with Silver, but I'm not willing to give up this thing because this is, whether it's revenge or actual, at least in Soul of the Dragon, it is a philosophical thing. Like, I can beat evil. You may say that you can't. It's like, well, I'm going to keep hitting the stone.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And I love that single-mindedness, and I actually think that's why people gravitate to Batman in a way. It's always like, well, who wins in a battle? It's like, well, how much prep time? Because if that's the key phrase, because if there's a lot of prep time, we're all kind of going, well, Batman probably, because he's playing chess at a level that 3D Vulcan chess,
Yeah, he's the Queen's Gambit.
Yeah, that's right.
But it isn't so much who wins in the fight; it's who refuses to lose, and I think you demonstrated that in that Ben Turner scene.
Drea, I want to continue down that path a little bit by you've talked about the dangers of being stuck in your trauma. Oh, you've talked about the dangers of not being able to get past your trauma, whether it's emotionally or physically. You have talked about the fact that it will send you ultimately down this negative cycle fruitlessly pursuing a resolution. And I'm wondering if you think that this kid who lost his parents then used his wealth to travel the world and learn every martial art known to man, to learn all the sciences known to mankind, to do all that just to come back and use their loss as his mission to make sure it never happens again. And yet Gotham City doesn't seem to be getting any better. And I realize that's for us, the audience, more than anyone else. But within the context of DC, Gotham City really isn't getting any better. Is Bruce stuck in his trauma?
Well, I do want to mention, as we explore his psychology, and here we're exploring his mental health a little bit, that as we were contemplating, Jeremy, I think you were talking about like comparing him to an athlete. It reminded me that I was having this debate with a biologist at UCLA, and his podcast is called The Biology of Superheroes. And I had claimed, like, look, Batman is like one of the best superheroes because most people could be Batman. Like, if you have the financial resources, many of us could actually be him. This is attainable. There's something relatable about him. And he reminded me that, actually, of course, he's a biologist. He mentions the genetic and biological components one needs to be Batman that really kind of like thin out those up, like only like 1% of people can, it's the training. Yes. It's the wherewithal, the resilience, but he is like physiologically, biologically already attuned to be this good of, and he's an intellectual because of his detective work, but he's also like his size, his height, his, muscular frame, all those things, all of those aspects come together to create this like perfect specimen of who Batman is. And I countered that and I said, yes, totally agree. Like I certainly, maybe I couldn't do it, but, I think too, there's this predisposition genetically to his emotional, psychological makeup too. In this case, he might be predisposed to mood disorders, to addictions, to PTSD, which puts him, like, primes him into this, this man who does not give up on this mission because of his perspective that he is the only one who can, who can fulfill this role. And a part of that, Brian, to answer your question, so I think these things kind of go together, right? In a way, it's this wonderful combination of features and traits that makes him like, I agree. Like, yes, I have those moments where I'm like, by God, I'm the only one who can do this job. Like no one else can do this one thing. And, as creators and writers, Jim and Jeremy, you might have those moments as well around like, these are this is the perfect formula right here to create this vision. I think that is like a Batman aspect. I would even say like, that's a phenomenon that he displays. But yes, there's this sadness to it because what he decides to create is a lifestyle that is very self-destructive and re-traumatizing for him. The path he's chosen will probably never create healing for him. If he created this path in another city, you might have, or, allowed people into his life, created that social support, given himself more balance, he may be onto something. But his fixation, his obsession, his addiction with this high risk adrenaline world that continues to put him in danger and cyclically doesn't resolve the crime in the city is sort of a formula for continued struggle and a stuckness in his trauma.
I wonder if you could look at it a different way too. I wonder if you could look at it as Batman siloing himself off and putting on a mask and saying he's the only one to do this because he wants to be a lightning rod for the kind of like, hey, in a civilized society, you can't just have somebody running around punching bad guys. But he's like, but that's what it's going to take. So I'm willing to take the hit for everybody so that, I can't bring anybody else into this thing, because if we get caught, I'm going to destroy their lives, and my parents' lives have already been destroyed. So I'm just going to be the lightning rod for this thing. I'm going to go do this thing solo. But there's almost an altruistic piece of it, this like philanthropic part of it, where it's just like, I'm doing this because I'm trying to protect everybody, but I know this is what needs to be done because no one's willing to do it. It's the death wish without shooting people. It's that I'm going to go clean up the subways, But
it's also kind of a perfect lie. If he never has to connect with anybody, he's always alone, and it has to be this way. I when we did Gotham by Gaslight, since it was an Elseworlds, we kind of took the opposite approach, where he's totally messed up and totally isolated in the beginning, even to the extent where he doesn't really have a very good relationship with Alfred. And then as the movie goes forward, and he's able to connect with Selina and have a real relationship there, it kind of cracks him open. And then by the end of the movie, we've kind of implied that the three street urchin Robins are going to be part of this family. He kind of is going to take them in. And at that point, I think he can still be Batman and not be messed up. Now he has connection. I mean, he's like, a kind of a weird kind of cop. It's okay to take on crime. It's okay to have a job where you do something that's hard, that may never be finished. If you're a soldier, war is never going to be completely done. But I think I need to have absolutely no one in my life doing this with me, and I'm the only one who can do it. Now, when he has a Bat family, when it becomes a real thing, he seems a lot less damaged.
Yeah, I do appreciate, I think Dre and I have even said that the ideal Batman isn't even Bruce or Bruce Wayne. It's almost Dick Grayson. He's the same version of the character who lost his parents tragically, right there in front of his eyes as a boy, was raised with these abilities and the certainly the resources and the ability, and became a vigilante of the night in the same way, but never lost ultimately a better outlook. He didn't seem as stuck, and he actually tried to have relationships, and he tried to be beyond Batman. He almost seemed to be the ideal Batman, which is actually one of the things I enjoyed, I think, about the Nolan trilogy, where it was this concept, certainly by the end, that just like Ra's al Ghul, anybody can be Batman. Any of these orphans that are now going to live in Wayne Manor can be the next Batman after Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, and they'll just get better from that point forward.
I mean, isn't that the fantasy? That's the attraction to Batman, is like thinking, man, I remember getting there used to be this book. It's sort of like the Anarchist Cookbook, but it was the poor man's James Bond. And it was this is how you make a smoke screen in your car. And I'm like, well, I need that because I don't know, it's like, it's the same reason. Like, I got to make sure that I'm wearing, commando style pants in case I'm on the run from ninjas. And it's like, you'll never be on the run for ninjas. Like, you don't know,
This also explains Jeremy's pants.
Yes, exactly. Big time. Well, no, that was being stay at home dad. You're like diaper. But I think the attractiveness to Batman, like, in the current DC continuity too, he's just this man of will. I think like that Rocky analogy is great because it's like, the whole idea is that can you go the distance? Batman is like, it doesn't matter. I'm going to keep coming. And I almost feel like he opens the door every day and there's like a Green Lantern ring and he's like, no, like he's outwilling the willpower because it does seem to be all will focused.
Well, I think you put that scene in sort of the Dragon in that Sensei says, well, you can keep pounding the rock, but it's always going to be there. That it'll be now it's evil dust. You can't get rid of it completely. And Bruce just keeps hitting the rock because, well, what difference does that make?
Yeah, exactly. That's not the point.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
It's like I'm hitting the rock.
Is Batman doing the best he can for Gotham by being a vigilante who's just punching evil? Or could he potentially be a better savior to Gotham by being the philanthropist, more like Thomas and Martha, and more, being more active in that role as Gotham's savior? And why does Gotham ultimately, this goes to something Jim was saying, why does Gotham ultimately need Batman?
The moral question that he makes, where he says, I am now going to buck societal norms and I'm going to take this on myself, is like the critical piece, right? Because he could pour money into this and pour money into that. But I also think he's egocentric enough to go, yeah, but they're all corrupt and no one's going to do it as well as I am. I'm going to be strategic. I'm going to pinpoint it. I'm going to be like David and Goliath, like hit him right in the head. And it's going to be, I'm going to hit the pressure points of Gotham. But what's fascinating to me is he took the trauma and all this stuff. Nobody was there to save his family. And he said, I'm now going to break the law. And my moral code is now superseding society's moral code. Like he has said now he's kind of put this kind of like God thing on himself. Like, nope, society's rules don't apply to me anymore. And really, if he's a billionaire, he's probably doing some of those philanthropic things, but he's so strategic minded. He's going, listen, I'm not going to be able to get that evidence, legally. So I've got to put a bat drone or like a, bat something in that. I'm going to just do it illegally.
So he's a complete hypocrite because you're either following the law or you're not following the law.
But he's not.
I think we also know that deep down, yeah, it would be a lot more beneficial for Gotham if he just did some urban renewal. But that would take away the satisfaction he would get of actually punching a thug in the face or dangling him off a building because he's working out, hit the anger he feels about losing his parents.
But you know what? He's so hyper intelligent. He knows all the psychological aspects of a human. I mean, that's part of his detective work, part of his profiling or whatever. So there's got to be some self-analyzation. So there might just be a part of him that goes, yeah, I'm not actually capable of doing that. I'm not capable of heading up urban renewal. I'll let Fox do it. What I'm good at is, chewing bubblegum and kicking ass, and it's like, that's what he's going to do. And he's like, I'm going to use a portion of my fortune to do this thing. Because the other piece of it is, we're talking about Gotham, in which the bad guys are so outlandish and crazy that no one... Actually, Jim, you wrote that really funny Lego where he goes on vacation and Superman's like, I'm Superman. I got this. I can take over Gotham while you're gone. And then Superman can't help Gotham while he's gone. It's like, you don't know the alleyways. You don't know on a Lego scale, it's really funny. But if you think about it, it's like an old cop drama. It's like, I know all the corners. I know the people to talk to and the people not to talk to. And one of the reasons that, Gotham, thinking about it's kind of sweet, actually. It's like Gotham is a cancer that probably needs to be nuked from space. But he's like the doctor that's going, no, I think we can save it. It's going to take some time, but I'm going to just take it out here and take it out here and take it out here. But it's been entrenched with so much badness for so long that it's impossible just to do it in a fell swoop. It's going to be a lifetime to try it.
I don't think the fact that he's so smart helps. I think that he's like Cumberbatch in Sherlock. He's like, being that smart doesn't help you. I mean, I just read in a book that I should connect with other human beings. Nope. It doesn't.
I'll get an orphan.
It doesn't help.
People have told him, women have said, you are completely detached emotionally. Like you're not connecting human to human. And he's been called out for the level of investment and what he, like the lengths he goes to fulfill this Batman fantasy. So I think there's an element of knowledge, but there's not an element of insight that he understands, like, oh, these people think that I'm not available emotionally and that, I'm wasting my time. He is truly, like, his conviction. It's almost why we love him so much. His conviction, his pull, his commitment is like, it's very, it's something that we admire about him. And yet it is one of his true faults. I think his trauma prevents him. You know, one of the very common responses to trauma is to have sort of a fragile level of insight. Like you don't realize that your worldview has really shifted and adjusted and changed. And so I could see this being a neuropsychological problem where he just doesn't have the functioning mentally to have that deep level of insight. The other thing that I think, Jim, you talked about was sort of being involved. Like he's got to be hands-on, blood on his hands. Like in order for him to feel like this is truly happening, viscerally, he needs to be in those moments. And this is where I think he also lacks the insight. He is intentionally going into those situations. He wants to be so close to the Joker and these other, these other dangerous people. He is addicted to that level of risk. He absolutely thrives on that level of adrenaline. And yet, rationally, there are other ways that he could achieve safety. There are other ways that he could achieve reconciliation and resolution for what happened to him. Like this has gone way too far. But I do think that at some intellectual level, he knows there might be other forms, other mechanisms of fixing the city, but he has to be so involved, so in it, that he can't really see it any other way.
It sounds a lot to me like you're like all of you are sort of saying that in some way he self-sabotages his own ability to be a superhero. I've always felt that he is as much as he's my favorite superhero, let's be clear, I think he is an awful superhero because, in the 80 years that he's been around, he has not even been able to do the one thing that he should have been able to do, which is clean up the streets of common muggings in Gotham City. The street crime is rampant in a city with a mythical creature that sole purpose was to destroy street crime. I can chalk up the fact that, your supervillains aren't going to be scared of him. Their thugs apparently are scarier than their villains than they are of Batman because they keep coming as well. But the fact that there are still common muggings and the fact that Batman, and I've always believed this was self-sabotage as well. One of the worst things Batman could have ever invented was the Batmobile because it puts him in a car, which makes him human. And any villain who's like, well, I saw it go down Main Street, so we could go rob the place, down there. It just...
I totally buy that. I totally buy the self-sabotage, mainly because he's with Catwoman now. So like to me, it's just like that is like, oh, I'm going to be with the person that's actually probably not great for me. Like, I'm a big Wonder Bat guy. So I'm like, hey, look, this princess that can take care of herself, that's really great. And you're sitting there going like, and I'll go after the burglar. Like that to me is like, that's me pre-Amy, my wife. It was like, I'm going to keep dating these horrible people because I was mistaking, drama for passion. And like, there's a part of me that's like, oh, of course he's going to go after Catwoman because he knows that's not going to lead to anything significant or it's going to end in tragedy. And that's what he lives for, is to end in tragedy.
I want to close out by asking all three of you, who is the definitive Batman? And I don't mean cast member. I don't mean Kevin Conroy versus George Clooney or Christian Bale versus Michael Keaton. I mean, give us that example of that story or that writer or even a performer, that moment where you said, this says Batman to me more than any other I've ever seen or read.
We are the definitive No, I'm kidding.
It's the Batman you learned to be along the way. Yeah.
That's not going to be my answer. Go ahead, Jeremy.
For me, it was Chuck Dixon when he was taking over the Bat titles, was really important to me. Those kind of like grew the mythology in different ways, whether it was Dick and Tim Drake or it was actually Batman. There's a great little bit of a story where it was the Batman Bruce Wayne murderer, and then Batman Fugitive, and then his bodyguard slash girlfriend slash, became a sidekick for a moment. But then she ended up joining Checkmate. And there's this really great issue where he realizes, Sasha Boudreau, right, it realizes that she is alive. And he also realizes that Checkmate is around. And it's this great episode where it's like Amanda Waller and Checkmate are supposed to be the most sophisticated, the most incredible organization, and no one's supposed to be able to tell they're there or whatever. And he just starts dismantling them. And it's just because he's going, yeah, I'm going to keep doing this until you let me know she's all right. And it was like such a oh my gosh, it doesn't matter what you put it. It is the John Wick Batman that I really enjoy. It's like, I care about this, and literally nothing will stand in my way to make sure it's okay, or, whatever. That to me, it's always that singular focus where I'm going to make sure it's okay. That to me is the Batman. Jim?
So, as I said, I grew up watching this Batman. And then my brother John was a exchange student and went to Germany, and he came back with all the stuff he collected as souvenirs. And one of the things he brought back was a Batman comic book. And I think it may have been the first Batman comic book I ever saw, but it's in German. And I think it's a Neil Adams, and on the cover is Batman apparently dead. And a puppet, a marionette, has just shot him. And he says something in German on the cover in the balloon. And I couldn't understand. And you would think, as a writer, I really enjoy the story. But I've never seen that issue. I've never looked to see what it is in English to find out what happens in that story. But that art, that giant cape that's so long, it couldn't possibly be that long because he would trip over it. And that imagery was shocking to me after growing up with Adam West Batman. And so to me, that was like, oh, this is different. This is serious. This is real, even though it's just as unreal. But it's a mood, and it's a mood I liked, despite the presence of killer puppets in German.
For me, I'm thinking about an episode. Many of the episodes of the animated series end with, don't end. They don't all end happy. In fact, most of them do not have a resolution or this silver lining or sort of everything gets right. Taken as a whole, this is a grim landscape. And one of the messages that we struggle with for fans of the show is like, okay, so some people do bad things, but that doesn't mean they're bad people. But we can't ignore that they did bad things. But we can't ignore that there's something good in them, right? And there is an episode, I believe it's the first episode that Baby Doll is in. And at the end of the episode, it is a tragic wrap up of acknowledging that there is something deeply wrong with her. And it is it's a very, I think what I appreciate about that moment is that Batman does not promise her this, he doesn't promise her healing. He doesn't promise her change. He really sits, sort of creates space with her and allows that moment to happen between them. It's very here and now, but it's also very tragic because, as I said, she will not be taken care of in a good way. Like she will likely, there's going to be some consequences for her decisions. And it's unfortunate that she was, she's suffering in this, in her body. Actually, she has this degenerative disorder. And yet that the reason why that moment is like my definitive Batman is that he's not callous. He's not unfeeling. He shows that actually he has empathy. He can connect with the feelings that she has, which are loneliness, people don't understand me, I live in darkness. I'm suffering, like I'm in emotional pain. And I got the sense that like, oh, he understands that. And he's willing to take that moment, not to like try to brush it off, not try to like resolve it. He just takes that moment to validate her. So that is, I think it gets buried because it's a really random episode, but it is a moment that I'll always remember.
I want to thank those of you who joined us on the panel. Drea, Jeremy, Jim, thank you for all of your wonderful insights. I want to thank those of you at home for watching. Please take care of yourselves and take care of those around you so that we can all do this together in person in 2022 for WonderCon. If you want to learn more about the Arkham Sessions, you can find us anywhere where you can get your podcasts. We are the Arkham Sessions, and you can follow us on Twitter at Arkham Sessions and on Instagram at the Arkham Sessions. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of WonderCon 2021.